Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending from where you're guys watching us. Thank you for being with us today, and welcome to our Hardtank webinar, which today will focus on ready-to-drink beverages, and we will cover a few topics on why and how would you enter an RTD sphere? I have some wonderful guests with me today, which I'm about to introduce in a minute. But for those of you who've never heard of us before, we are here in behalf of Hardtank, which is a part of Hardbeans. That is a coffee technology hub. We specialize in new technologies for the coffee sector. And at the moment, we do work in fields such as specialty coffee roasting, hard tank cold brew technology, which also extends to our ready-to-drink cold brew production. And we also developed a coffee grounds recycling. We started in business back in 2017. We're now 3 manufacturing facilities and a team of over 40 people dedicated to making the world of coffee better. So this is enough on us, and let me introduce our fabulous guests for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Ansis Romanovskis from Latvia. Ansis, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, I just need to switch my mic back. First of all, thank you for having me here. So it's a big pleasure. It's always a good pleasure, a big pleasure for me to be in your company with such a talented and innovative guys doing something great in coffee industry. Myself, I've been in coffee a little bit around some time, not so much as a dinosaur, but experienced this and that. Been working locally in Baltic markets and also abroad, and currently, kind of trying to push and work with fantastic our brand Rockaby Roastery. So, looking forward to this webinar. So, and it's nice to know that there's a lot of people behind the cameras the other side. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ansis. So another guest for today is Timur Elait. I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, Timur.
Thank you, Matthew, for having us here. We're very happy to be part of this webinar. So I'm the founder of NOOZ Cold Brew Coffee. It's the first functional cold brew coffee in UAE, and we're very happy to share our experience and expertise in the business, so many people can also achieve our successes. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Timur, for being with us once again. And myself, I'm one of the co-founders of Hardbeans and Hardtank, currently responsible of our sales and operations, mostly involved in our RTD operations. And the agenda for today will be the following. We will first discuss overall or general topics concerning ready-to-drink beverages, cold brew, nitro cold brew. We're gonna give you this quick cold brew 101 too. Then we're going to discuss why should you consider entering the cold brew ready-to-drink sphere. Then we will tell you how to do it with us step by step. And then I'm going to give the stage back to our guests so that they can share their experience in entering ready-to-drink market with us, but in two different ways. But more on that in a couple of minutes. So without further ado, let me go straight into the merit. So for those of you who've never been involved in our industry before but got interested, welcome freshmen. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about definitions. So what is cold brew and what is RTD in the first place? So cold brew coffee or cold brew whatever, tea, cascara, dried fruits, is a method of extracting dry material with water, but in low temperature, either cold or room temperature. And usually that results in a different taste profile of the same drink made with hot water, and also some different health and flavor properties. Whereas Nitro cold brew is a cold brew saturated, infused, you might also say, with nitrogen, either gas or liquid. And the purpose of doing so is that if you infuse your beverage, let it be coffee, an example, with nitrogen, it's going to become creamy, smooth, fluffy, and dense. And it will also provide you an eye-pleasing cascade effect similar to Guinness. Other terms to define for today is RTD, which stands for ready to drink. It's, like we say here, a growing category of beverages, basically any beverage that you can just grab straight from a shelf, whether it's a grocery store or a petrol station or a coffee shop, just open it up and drink it as you go. And another term, another acronym is FMCG, which stands for fast moving consumer goods. It's a wider category of product in which RTD is just a part of. You can think of your chocolate bar as being an FMCG product, or your instant noodle soup, etc. So enough on those terms and alphabet of cold brew, so to speak. And we can now take a overlook on the market of cold beverages. So you might have heard before or have read before that cold drinks are taking the market by storm. And it is for a reason. Just to give you an example, in 2023 already, Starbucks, a biggest global coffee shop chain, reported that 75% plus of all the drinks they have sold were cold drinks. And this trend is being highly visible in more and more retailers, more and more coffee shop chains around the world. So cold drinks are really a hottest trend on the market right now. And if you wonder why, well, the reasons are plenty, but I'd like to focus on the three of them that we listed here in your screen right now. So first, the generational change of the consumer is evoking that change here. So Gen Z and also millennials, to whom I belong, have slightly different behavior when it comes to drinking coffee or drinking beverages themselves. So they are much more on the go. They seek for something that is easy to consume, but something that also is high in quality, which is now the case on the market. And I will talk about that in a minute in a greater detail. Another thing is that convenience and customization of those beverages are now driving the market. So it's not like you only have one sad coffee available in your grocery store. You might have a wide choice of different kinds, types of that product. You can choose whether it's black coffee from Rwanda or Ethiopia maybe, or whether it's dairy latte or it's an oat latte, whether it's flavored, non-flavored. So there are a lot of custom options. So the choice is high, the choice is big. The number of the products on the shelves are bigger, so they present nicer and they are more recognized by consumer. Not to mention, it's also very convenient, right? You just enter your grocery store, you grab a can, and you don't have to sacrifice the quality. Which leads me to another point, which is focus on health, wellness, and function of products, which means that consumers not only seek for convenience and quality, but we are also much more educated these days on the fact that the food and drinks we consume shall be beneficial to our body, right? So instead of going for Coke or any kind of sweetened and colored soda, we might go for something natural, right? And now cold brew market and cold brew RTD market is an answer to all of that. The product is convenient, the product is versatile, and the product is healthy and guilt-free. So we tick all the boxes, and this is why we see that the growth of RTD category in all statistics, all the market analysis is significant. And RTD, which is an entire huge category, also including your bottled water or your Coke drink, and also RTD cold brew, an example, is growing year to year. 5% might seems like a modest growth, but we're talking about a huge category in general. And when you look into details of it, you will then learn that cold brew RTD is growing double digits. And the cold brew market in general is growing over 20% year to year. So although being a niche, it's a fastest growing niche on the market right now. So if you're thinking about business reasons of entering cold brew ready to drink category, that might be something worth further analysis. So I was talking a little bit about what is driving the market globally. So now we can focus on the details and try to find an answer. Why should you enter RTD market with your brand, with your product range? There might be more reasons. There are more reasons, but we only want to focus on the most important ones for today. So first thing, if you are, let's say, a coffee roaster or a coffee brand, let it be a coffee shop chain, an example, you can diversify your revenue stream, right? So you don't only have to sell roasted coffee anymore. Obviously, there are different products that you can sell as coffee, whether it's a drip bag or an instant coffee or ground coffee or a whole bean coffee. It's still that one product, coffee for brewing. It's not a FMCG product by itself. It's not ready for consumption. You first have to brew it somehow. So that said, if you are a coffee roaster, an example, it doesn't fill all the gaps when we speak of a product being convenient for those younger generations consumers. You can also broaden your product portfolio. So not only you sell your coffee to some existing channels, but now when you have beverages in your offering, you can extend your brand recognition, and then you can potentially enter new distribution chains. So you are diversifying your business by diversifying your product portfolio. So not only it's potentially a getaway for increasing your revenue, but also it might be a little bit more sustainable for your business because you can then start reaching out to new groups of clients, new groups of or types of consumption of the same product, which is coffee, only that in different form. And that leads us to a second reason of why should you consider entering at RTD market is that you can reach new distribution channels. Again, if you are a coffee roaster, your distribution channels usually are B2B coffee shop clients, offices, maybe a little bit of e-commerce, maybe a little bit of retail, some event sales, right? And that's more about it. But if you have an RTD product in your offering, then it opens up a completely new field of distribution for you because such products are way more attractive for retailers, convenience stores, let it be petrol stations, gyms, vending machines, etc., etc. Those places are much better for selling canned coffee, an example, or canned tea, or whatever RTD product for that matter, rather than whole bean coffee, an example, right? Same applies to if you are a chain of coffee shops. Not only you can sell canned cold brew in your coffee shop, that can replace your takeaway options if you have limited space or limited resources for brewing cold brew on site, but also you can take your product and your brand to new places, which are not just your coffee shops, being in control of the quality of your product, of the integrity of your brand, only that your brand is now visible in retail stores. And there are some big famous brands that do it. Just the biggest and most obvious example of all are Starbucks retail products flying over the shelves in every retail place everywhere around the world right now. So you can buy Starbucks product not only in Starbucks coffee shops. That's the idea behind the new distribution channel that RTD is enabling you to handle with. And great part about all I'm speaking today is that it's a fresh market. You can stay ahead of the competition because we are on the rise, but there are not many people on the field, so to speak. So if you have guts, if you are foreseeing the future and you're trying to build a sustainable business for years, this might be a right opportunity. So a right product in the right time. And if you start now, you might be the first among the rest. So the point is, there was not a better time to entering RTD cold brew than it is right now. But of course, it is not so easy to do it. So if you are a roaster or a coffee shop chain, if I'm still sticking to these two examples, and you ever wanted to make your own ready-to-drink product, you might be considering one of two options, either making it by yourself or trying someone or finding someone to do it for you, right? So going into private label production, none of which was, and it still is, very easy nor cheap. So fast and obvious idea you might have if you say like, okay, I'm going to produce my own RTD drinks, is that all right? I'm going to do it by myself, like I'm roasting my coffee by myself, right? I have a facility, a coffee roaster, etc. I'm a producer, so I'm now going to produce my own drinks, right? As an extension of that craft philosophy. Well, you can do it, but guess what? It's not that easy. We were facing this issue in the very beginning, and we very quickly realized there's no cheap and simple way of producing ready-to-drink products. If you're a roaster, sticking to this example, not only you have to have your roastery, which is a part of the business that brings you roasted coffee, but then as we talk about cold brew ready-to-drink production, it only starts there. You then have to process the coffee, you have to brew it, you have to can it, you have to protect it, meaning that you use sterilization or pasteurization, and then you have to brand it, and then you have to distribute it probably to different distribution channels. So my point is that the production of drinks is far more complex than the production of roasted coffee. Not to mention capital expenditure, right? From our calculations, if you want to have a reasonably efficient canning facility, you start conversations in terms of capex on 2 million USD. Well, that's kind of a lot for anyone to even do a test run, right? And to see and experiment if that is going to be a right move for me, right? The process is way more complex and way more difficult because of food safety and microbiological concerns. We don't have high temperature involved here in cold brewing. The beverage production is much more susceptible to any kind of product damage and therefore consumer safety. And I can't say enough on this. This really can be potentially lethal to both your business and, in worst case, your customers if you don't make everything by the book. And if I compare roasting coffee versus producing drinks in this field, it's like kindergarten and PhD level on the university. Totally different league. And not everybody wants to handle it or is even aware that they will have to handle it. So once we said that producing RTD on your own is kind of difficult and challenging, to say the least, right? You might think of, okay, how about I find someone who knows the drill and do it for me, right? And here we are discussing the private label production. Why should you even consider it? Well, first and foremost, you don't have to build your own factory, right? So you don't have to spend those $2 million from my previous example. That's to start with. Another part is that you don't have to learn, you don't have to hustle, and you don't have to make mistakes and suffer from those mistakes when we talk about food safety and microbiological issues, right? You have someone who's an expert in it, and this is their job to take care of it. You don't want this headache, right? Then you don't have to worry about a consistency if you have a right partner, of course. You just provide them with your product, or even don't need to do that. And you make sure that your product is consistent batch to batch, order after order. You don't have to worry about, once I make it this way, another round, I made it the same way, but it tastes different for whatever reason, I don't know. Because again, producing beverages is another step after producing your coffee, and it's far more complex, as I said. And then, of course, if you have your facility, you also have your fixed costs, starting with labor in the first place. And again, if you operate coffee roastery, let's say you have a roaster, his assistant, someone for QC and packaging, and from the production side of things, if you're fairly automated, you can do, I don't know, 20 tons a month with 4 people on one shift in production only. Whereas with beverages, it's much more labor extensive. And not only this, but your labor force has to be your team, your staff has to be much more educated versus coffee roasting. I know roasting coffee is very complex and this is an art and a craft, but again, if you compare this to producing beverages, this is maybe not as big difference as a kindergarten and a PhD in the university, but let's say it's like high school and again a PhD in the university. Why is it so important? Think about it like this. If you roast 20 batches of a given coffee in a roastery along the day, and you make a mistake in one batch, well, worst case scenario, you just throw away this batch and you re-roast. Or some people would just blend it all together, nobody will ever notice, right? Not a big deal. But if you produce a big batch of cold brew for a day, and you make one single mistake, the entire production of a given day becomes contaminated or by other way not consistent. There is no space for mistakes, right? So if you want to avoid mistakes, which you must basically when you run a business like this, you need a very professional team. And that team, well, is expensive in terms of the labor. So when you don't have to pay to your staff and you only pay for the production that you need when you need it, this is very well optimized. So when I'm speaking about it, you probably noticed that I'm speaking about it for a reason because we ourselves as Hardtank, we are a private label RTD manufacturer. And just a few reasons that you might consider working with us before I give the stage back to Timur Renansis is how do we work with our partners? Usually when somebody approaches us and asks, okay, that all looks good, all looks sleek, I want to give it a try. Why should I work with you and how should I work with you? So we have 2 ways you can work with us, the one-stop shop solution and the custom formula solution. So starting with one-stop shop, we have a variety of existing formulas made with specialty coffee only, dairy-free options only, fully natural ingredients only, but we have also tonic cold brew, craft iced tea, hibiscus brews, functional coffees in our portfolio. So there's plenty of formulas to choose from. And the benefit of going into one-stop shop is that you can choose existing formulas and you can benefit of low minimum order quantities, which is just a pallet, which is 3,000 pieces per formula, per SKU. It's really, as far as I know, the lowest on the market. It's available in either 200 or 250 ml cans, so you can also play around with sizes. The lead time is really also very competitive, to say the least. It's from 4 to 6 weeks, despite of the seasonality. And our production facility is BRCGS certified. So if you don't know what the BRC certification system is, it's a level above ISO certification, to put it simply. So it's the most strict and reliable and globally recognized quality management or food production quality management certification system there is. Super strict. And if you're BRC certified, your door will always be open to the biggest retailers wherever you try to approach them. But if you decide that one-stop shop solution is not a good option for you, not good enough option for you because you want your product to contain your own coffee or tea or whatever other ingredients there are in, we can build a custom formula. So after we start our initial conversation, you tell us how you want, what kind of product would you like us to produce with you, how would you like it to taste, whether or not should we provide all the ingredients or you provide all the ingredients, or it is a mix of both of those. And I believe both Timur and Ansis will be able to tell you a little bit more in practice how does it look like, because this is the way we work with them in the first place. We're gonna supply you with samples, multiple iterations of a given formula so that you can choose it, provide us with your feedback. We redo those samples according to your feedback, and then a couple weeks later, we provide you with another batch of samples. So you retry them and you tell us, okay, this is maybe a little bit too sweet, this is maybe a little bit too acidic, I want you to change this, I want you to change that. And then we do the final formulation if necessary. You sign off the recipe, which you are the owner of. So you might as well go and produce it somewhere else if you're unhappy with us. And we're gonna do the lab tests to ensure the shelf life, to ensure the food safety, especially if we're using ingredients that come from outside of our facility. And this is also a scalable model. So you start with the MOQ of 2 pallets per flavor, but we can get you, as much as a full container. So we can grow together as your brand is growing. This process, of course, is slightly longer than 4 to 6 weeks, as we have with one-stop shop. So the formulation usually takes about 2 to 3 months, depending on the complexity and the number of your formulas, and of course the speed of your feedback. It's a paid service, but then we pay it back once you start ordering with us. So at the end of the day, if we are both successful, it's free for you. All right. So now I'd like to, as I said, give the mic back to Timur so that he can tell you a little bit more about NOOZ, which is a fantastic emerging brand straight from the UAE that we have a pleasure to co-create on the manufacturing side as Hardtank. And I couldn't be more happy and excited to be presenting this to you today, because this is really an example that you can build an entire company, an entire business with your private label manufacturer, and do something that we believe is kind of groundbreaking. So just to give you heads up, Timur is deeply rooted in the specialty coffee industry, like I am, and also he used to work in cold brew industry before he launched NOOZ. But for some reason, you didn't decide to launch your coffee roastery in the UAE, right? And probably most of our guests today wonder why.
Thank you, Machi. Thank you so much. I agree with you 100%. So basically, before getting to news, I'll share with you guys my personal story with the cold brew coffee. So as a passionate for the specialty coffee industry and as a coffee entrepreneur, we have started actually producing cold brew coffee like 7 years ago. And it was actually like an experimental project. We used the traditional toddy machines to do the coffee and the cold brews. And actually, it was surprisingly going extremely well. We had very good positive feedbacks, and the business was like expanding very fast. But the thing with producing with the toddies, it comes with a lot of, let's say, limitations. So basically, each batch used to take like 24 hours for brewing, which was actually very challenging for us to expand for bigger numbers and amounts of cold brew to serve our market. And we started actually supplying our products to gyms, pharmacies, specialty stores, even some coffee shops were selling our products. But the problem with having in-house facility, it didn't allow us to expand to big supermarkets, hypermarkets, because all of these big places, they actually require a lot of like ISO certificates, the BRIC certificate, as Matthew was mentioning. So actually it was a hustle to expand the business. So basically we were looking, first of all, to upgrade our manufacturing facility. But then 2 years ago, we have met me and Matthew at the World of Coffee in Italy. And I was actually introduced to this astonishing technology. I always say like Hardtank technology is like the AI that we have in the technology segment. So basically, first of all, with the brewing process that they have, having a batch brewed less than 2 hours was actually very surprising. And to be honest, I couldn't believe that in less than 2 hours, you can get this bold flavor and like the notes of the complex specialty coffee notes that we're actually looking for. So then I had a partner that was manufacturing raw materials for supplements. And we had this idea of adding L-theanine, which is a green tea extract, to coffee to have less jitters. Because as you know, we have a lot of people that they love coffee, they love cold brew, but the challenge of cold brew, like it's high in caffeine. So we have tried many times on our own, and then we like send our samples to Machi and the Hardtank team to experiment with these powders. And the beautiful thing is that these powders actually mixed very well with the coffee, and we didn't have to add actually like any unnecessary additives. So you won't have like a huge ingredient list with a lot of harmful ingredients. And then actually we also experimented with MCT oil powdered. So as you know, like combining any oil to solubles, it's very hard because as you know, it would separate. So basically, even with this technology and process, we had an amazing, astonishing drink. So that's how NOOZ was born. So it's functional coffee and it's specialty coffee also. So basically, any person that would like wants to enjoy like a good can of coffee who would appreciate it and see like the notes of the coffee that we were intending to. And anyone that is sick of the unhealthy energy drinks and suffering from crashes, they would also like enjoy this cold brew coffee. So that's our experience with Hardtank. And actually, that was an excellent start in the UAE, because I'm going to tell you something, that if you look at the competition of the cold brew market, it's actually almost absent. Because if you want to compare the cold brew coffee to Starbucks, I don't consider actually Starbucks as a coffee drink. It's like something like coffee, because even if you look at the ingredient list, you can see the coffee flavorings in their cans. So basically, I think any specialty coffee roaster, anyone in the coffee business, I guess it's a very easy business and to make money. And as Machi was mentioning, like the first comers always get the biggest share, and I guess it's the perfect time to enter this market. And even us in NOOZ, we want to have more competitors with good quality coffee, because when you're compared to Starbucks, it's actually, I guess it's a bit bad because it lowers your standards and quality that you have. So that's our story with NOOZ. Thanks, Machi.
Well, thanks a lot, Timur. Just so you know, there will be a Q&A at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions, not only towards myself, but also Ansis and Timur, make sure to type them into our chat, and we will be bringing them over and trying to answer to them. Just one more question to you, Timur, because your business is being developed from scratch, right? It's not like you've been bootstrapping. You've been preparing for a big launch, right? It's a slightly different model than most of us do. Like we start as a tiny roaster, we just, or maybe we have a coffee shop and then we become a roaster and then we eventually become a bigger and bigger, which is the case of Rocket Bean and Ansys, which is also a fascinating story that I can't wait to share with you in a moment. But you approached it differently. And as far as you know, you started with a couple hundred of retail points in which NOOZ is available across the UAE, right? So if you can just briefly tell us how to make this big launch since day one, and how much time and how much work and how much resource it takes, not only from the product perspective, but also from the whole business planning perspective I think it might be a valuable insight for all of our audience today.
Yeah, I would happily answer that question. So basically, of course, it's a hustle. And I think like any business, anything you want to do, it's going to be a hustle. Nothing is going to be easy. But to be honest, what helped us to introduce NOOZ and to be in the market is actually almost the absence of coffee RTDs in the FMCG sector. So basically now you can see like maybe 50 brands of juices, you can see maybe 40 brands of sodas, a lot of brands that are concentrated on the energy drinks. But actually when it comes to coffee, like it's a super small segment. And as you know, like everyone loves coffee. And I always say that coffee in general, it's a very young industry. If you compare it to tea or sodas, for example, Coca-Cola, they've started, I guess, 100 years ago. Red Bull have started, I guess, 40 years ago. And in the coffee, I guess, only in the last 20 years, it started booming and getting popularity. So if you go to the FMCG sector, where the cold brew RTDs, it's the perfect place for them. You don't have actually a lot of competitors to start with. So actually, for us to get onboarded in these 100 locations, now we're actually in 300 locations. You can congratulate us. We're now covering almost the entire UAE, from gas stations, supermarkets, e-commerce. You can even find us on Amazon. So moving back to the onboarding, it took us about 2 months. But to be honest, like a good product, everyone would appreciate a good product. And the retailers, they also want to have their share in the business. So when they see that you have a good crafted product within a popular segment, they'll always be happy to take you off to have this journey with you.
Well, that's a very valuable insight. And just to wrap it up, if I understand correctly from our conversations, you're mostly involved into, and you mostly care about the distribution of your product, right? Our role in this whole venture is that we provide you with a product of a given quality and characteristics that is consistent and produced on time. So you don't have to worry about this part of your business. All you do is you think of how many more stores I can enter, how much more of the products I can push, how great I can make this brand to be, right?
100%. So what I want to tell you, the beautiful thing about private labeling, actually, and of course you have to find the right partner for that. For you to have your facility, even I saw Matthew were mentioning like 2 million euros. Even if you're very smart and you can do that for like 1 million or even 500,000 euros, believe me, if you can take this money and invest them into marketing and in-store activations, here where you get your growth and your money back. Because if you spend the whole capex that you have on just like building a factory, building a facility, getting all the certifications and moving through all bureaucracy, and that if everything moves like slightly and perfectly, it's going to take, first of all, a lot of time. Because I remember like me and Matthew were speaking about that for the last 3 years to start this production. And second of all, you're going to spend a lot of money that you could actually spend in the market. Because as you know, like now it's the era of social media, like TikTok, Instagram, and everything. So even if you spend your money there, here where you get your money back. So I guess like having the hustle of having your own facility and the problems in the facility and the certification and the bureaucracy and everything, you can just remove that and just concentrate on having nice profits.
Well, cheers to having nice profits to all of us. Thanks a lot, Timur. And now, last but definitely not least, I'd like to reintroduce to you Mr. Ansis from Rocket Bean, a dear friend of mine with whom we know each other since, I don't know, 10 years almost. It will
Ages,
be.
Magic.
Ages. Yeah, you've said we're not dinosaurs, but to some extent, I think at least we're elephants or rhinos or tortoise. But getting back to the business side, Rocket Bean is a fantastic brand that works in all sorts or all areas of the coffee market. If you can tell us a little bit more about your background and what Rocket Bean and King Coffee Services is doing, and then we will discuss about why have you entered the RTD.
Thanks, Maciek. Once again, thank you for having me here. It's a big pleasure to share our story. And Timur, congrats on your success. Sounds fantastic, and you are in a fantastic market with such a great product. So, in very short, actually, our background in coffee started some long time ago, approximately 2006. We started as a service company. So our background is in always been, and we still do that, is support of the coffee businesses. So we've been always on the backside of the coffee shops, bars, restaurants, and etc. etc. So providing them the equipment, service, training, coaching, setting up, building up the concept. So all that we did for many years, until the moment we realize, okay, what is the next step for our growth? We have fantastic portfolio with the beautiful brands. We have best machines in the industry. We have everything in our portfolio is the best we know. I'm not going to mention probably exactly the names because the list is long of all the best products in the coffee industry. And obviously the missing link for us was coffee roasting, controlling of the coffee bean quality. And and I believe that good things come a long way. So you have to be a little bit patient and to prepare yourself from very different perspectives to be ready to do such things. And it's a big step, obviously. Once you enter coffee roasting, obviously they're probably not going to be way back, and you can't do it wrong. It has to be done well. So in our case, we started, as you mentioned, the name King Coffee Service is actually our platform of the business, how we started it. Meaning King Coffee Service in spelling like a royal coffee service, like our client is a king, and we are serving them. So that was the whole point. So entering the coffee game, roasting game, obviously we wanted to create a brand which will be also strong as our coffee backbone we had in the coffee industry as a specialist providing services. We thought, okay, we have to build a completely new brand, and it's Rocket Bean is powerful enough in our mind. So obviously we play a lot of times with the names of how coffee company could be called, but we stick with the Rocket Bean. Always targeting a little bit higher. Trying to create something great. Being in NASA level. In coffee. That's kind of direction. And I think we did a pretty good job in 2015. We launched our roastery successfully with the first lighthouse coffee shop in Riga, in Latvia, and which was at that time probably one of the first like such a scale coffee shop with the roastery, which is like see-through process of the roasting and so on. So you can see, while you're visiting coffee shop, you can see the production. And obviously we were heavily influenced by the traveling around the world and seeing some cool coffee shops, and roasteries in New York, in London, and etc. You see these kind of cool coffee places, and we're just dreaming about that. One day we'll have this kind of beautiful coffee shop, stylish place to come for the people, enjoy great coffee. Everything should be great in that place, and also you can see how the coffee is roasted. That dream actually came true, but also you have to realize in which market you're playing. Good for us that we are operating in all 3 Baltic states, so we're covering business in Lithuania and Estonia as well, with independent teams and offices. So we had a little bit larger scale of the playground because the Latvia market itself is fairly small. But when you combine the Baltics, it's a little bit more interesting to play in a Baltic scale. So and then basically the coffee shop and roasting business, it's all went probably, I think, very well. We learn a lot, we travel a lot, and we grow the brand and product massively. We invested a lot of our time, energy, money in building knowledge around roasting and how to develop the brand, because we never did that before in our experience. As a service provider, you don't need much of the marketing, you don't need much of if you do a good job as a doctor or the service engineer, you're never going to have a problem with the clients. They will be full of the lines with the clients, and you just put them in a waiting list. That business side was covered very well, and we did a fantastic job, and still doing a fantastic job with that. But roasting or the coffee brand is something else. It's built from scratch, and Timur probably knows it very well. Obviously, when nobody knows what is this, kind of new coffee brand, and how you're going to promote that, and how you're going to bring it out. And also, it's important to know that I would say also looking on RTDs, it's very important to analyze and understand where are you based, what's your background of the market, climate-wise as well, if we talk about RTD, right? So it's a big help if you are in a climate where ready-to-go beverages, cold coffees are suited to the climate. You know, being in the Baltics and Nordic country, obviously cold coffees, it's not existing in the market. You know, it's something people don't know, they don't drink. You can actually get punched in the face if you offer the cold coffee, right? So I'm already freezing, I need some warm drink, you know, it's a slightly different philosophy. So obviously we'll come back to that, to the point when we started to think about RTDs. And obviously this whole journey of the building the brand was long and super exciting, and it's still going on. It's never finished project, you know, it's still going on, it's changing, it's evolving, and we're just having a bigger plans. And in fact, this year we're investing almost 3 million euros in the roastery. And that's also coming back to the investment part. Should we invest in RTD facility to make our own, or like fulfill our ambition that we are the guys who will be doing our RTD beverages ourselves, heavily investing in stuff and knowledge and experience, which will probably take us some 5 years and a lot of money on the way to you know, pick up the mess on the way we created during the creation, you know, to get to the point we think we need to get, you know. When in 2000, Maciek, correct me if I'm wrong, 2019, first time we sat down about cold brews. When did you launch the first Hardtank in the world of coffee? That was in Berlin, yeah. I remember.
It was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's where we launched.
Yeah. So and now we're coming back to the point how we start to think about like RTD. So actually, in fact, since the Rocket Bean very beginning, we always been looking in that we want to be slightly different in the market. So our motto is always been the quality. Right, so we always were thinking from this passion point of view that we don't care about like some kind of mainstream things. We just want to create something unique, great experience, you know, personality and stuff like that. So everything should be personalized. Ready to go beverages, obviously in my radar, we're actually already pretty early in a time when it's become popular. If you remember first coffee shows, you start to notice that somebody is doing these toddies brewed, bottle canned, or like bottle filled, hand labeled bottles with the dark beverages. And honestly, when you taste them, the most of the case you will be tasting will be heavily oxidized and badly infused, uneven, unstable product with very short lifetime. Shelf lifetime. So, and then I was always been looking on that. I was thinking like, damn, you know, like the cold coffee is a great product, and in small batches of the testing, sometimes you get it right and it's really good. And there's a moment when you would like to offer that to the clients. And do you remember, guys, that there was this moment of the Harios when everybody had this kind of all the cool coffee shops should have the Hario cold drip. You know, and it was like, and when it was a new thing, everybody was like, damn, look at this thing, you know, and who had the biggest one. But the game was about who has the biggest one, you know. And then obviously, then is the reality check when you come to the tasting of those products, yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, most of the case that was pretty bad, you know. It was so heavily oxidized products, and you cannot really enjoy them. So, and that's the reason why for many years we skipped the product. We obviously were, along the way, we were always testing. As a roaster, and the coffee shops, which we were where we were serving coffee, we obviously tested a lot of ways of preparing cold brew coffee, but never enough satisfying. And then 2019, when we sat down with you guys and you presented me this Hardtank technology you created, I was blown away, you know. Finally, I had this fantastic, clean, very balanced, very specialty-oriented flavor of the cold brew. I was like, you know, crying, and my face was in the tears, you know, this moment of the truth. But it didn't took us long. Also, we took the distribution of the Hardtank in Latvia, and the first Hardtank production unit arrived to our roastery, and we started to play with it. And soon we installed, only in the summer season, we installed in all our coffee shops, we installed dispensers. So we basically were brewing internally at the roastery through the Hardtank, these kind of cans of nitrogen flashed cold brew, and then also on a tap, it gets some nitrogen infusion. However, the product was great, everything was finally good, but how are you going to do this canning? How are you going to offer that for takeaway? And you see that volume's also a little bit growing, and the roastery side is a little bit struggling of finding time. You still have some cleaning procedure to make this all the product completely safe. You have to follow all the kind of procedures to make sure it's done correctly. And as I always believe that some things you have to do yourself, and some things you have to trust to the professionals, somebody you know and trust that can do the better job. Not everything you have to do yourself, and understand where is your focus. And our focus obviously is core business, is the coffee roasting. So we are coffee roasters first at the first place. And I was not shy, and there was this, obviously you were guys also ready on offering, and we started this testing of the batches in the cans. And our kind of direction was that we don't want to go with some ready recipes. We ship all the coffees we roasted. So our participation in the process is that we roast the coffee, we ship it to the Hardtank. So then the guys are going whole the production process according to the recipes we agreed on, and then we do the testing and we make some corrections accordingly on the way. So there's quite a long, in our case, there's quite a long way of throwing samples back and forwards, feedbacks back and forwards. But what is important that your partner in this case, Hardtank, is very professional. And I never had from the Magic any kind of feedback that, I don't know what you're saying, the product is great, I don't know why you don't like it. So every feedback we give that we are not satisfied with something was always taken professionally and always was corrected professionally. At the end of the day, we also challenge each other with some kind of new ideas. How about if we do this way? How about we do that? Or how about we taste this one or try this way? At the end, I'm super happy because we could create a very exceptional product range with very high quality and with very high feedback from the customers. And in a very short, so the market in Latvia, as I mentioned, it's I wouldn't say it's non-existing. FMCG is like, basically it's like you go to the stores and you see the cold brews. There is Starbucks, there's Costa coffees in a cans, and some unknown products, even from Poland, some canned beverages. There are, and obviously before we tested our products, we bought everything in a market we could have the hands on, and the cupping table of the cold brew beverages was like around some 50, 60 beverages we could find in the shops. Obviously in different conditions, some were canned, some were like short shelf life and stuff like that, but also cold beverages and coffee beverages. And then we tested them all, and we were super happy that we believe that our product, thanks to you guys, came the first. Also looking from the perspective that it's the most natural from ingredient point of view, most closer to the coffee flavor you want to get out of this coffee, most representing the origin of the coffee as well, and also being health conscious, that we believe that having less of sugar or having no sugar in our product is just a beneficial thing. So overall, I would say every year this RTD section, which is our side product, and this is again for us, it's a side product, but it plays a big role, and we're planning also to add new products in the range. With the time, it's growing, considering climatic and location where we are based in Latvia, it's still growing up, and we are happy to see that.
Very well, Ansis, thank you so much. You've been actually reading in my mind, because anytime I wanted to ask a question to put a little bit more detail into a part of your story, you were just right with it. So it was very fascinating
Gotcha.
to hear it from the point of start. Thank you so much. And while we still have a few minutes scheduled, I see there are plenty of questions in our Q&A section, which I believe all the three of us will be ready to answer. But before we go into this, just to wrap up the discussion, is that RTD is already there and is not going anywhere, or is growing everywhere, depending on how you look at it. And these are just a few examples of the small brands being acquired by big brands, or big brands being acquired by even bigger brands in the RTD industry over the last couple of years. And you can really see there is traction here. There is demand for RTD products and brands alongside. And if the biggest boys in the sandbox are entering the space, then they probably know what they're doing. And that might not be the main or the only reason for you to consider it, but just at least to back it up. So, guys, thank you so much for this discussion today. I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of it, but I see the questions in the Q&A are just flowing in. So how about we start displaying them on the screen and replying to them. So let's start. The first one: where do you see the growth of flavored cold brew or functional cold brew? Well, from our perspective, we with both flavored options and functional options. And I would say this: flavored is now more popular because it's on the market for decades now. But when I'm looking at what is picking up, these are definitely functional products. Timor is the most prominent example of building an entire brand around functional products in the RTD coffee sector. But we also have a lot of inquiries about, if not the same or similar, then at least products from that category. So coffee with adaptogens, coffee with vitamins and minerals, coffee or tea with MCT oil or L-theanine, like in Timur's case, both of them. So definitely, if I was betting on one or the another for the future, I would bet for functional products, definitely. Okay, a longer one, and this is question for Zaid. I'm not sure if Zaid is here with us today, but given from the merit of the question, I believe Timur, you will be the best one to answer it.
Yeah, so basically, choosing the right distribution partner, I guess, is a key, especially in our case, because our business model is like 100% reliant on selling in supermarkets and convenience stores. So I guess when it comes to picking the distributor, you have to pick not a very huge distributor and not a small distributor, because a large distributor, he actually wouldn't care about a small brand to put it on the shelves. He wouldn't care so much. And you have the big brands like Nestle and Bendelez, they're spending millions into their brands. And if you want to speak about a small distributor, he would actually won't have the coverage that you actually need. So I guess having a mid-range distributor is a key for you to grow your brand. And of course, definitely this distributor, he has to have coverage in C-stores, convenience stores, supermarkets, everywhere. That's a key. So you can't take a distributor that is specialized, for example, only in convenience stores or only in supermarkets. So definitely the network should be across all stores.
Thank you, Timur. That was a pretty detailed question. All right, let's move on. There are plenty more. Wow, that's a good question. Which coffee varieties lend themselves better for RTD? So, what I can say about this is cold brew in the first place is a very good extraction method, but also merciless extraction method when we speak of the quality of your beans. In other words, if there are any defects, if the coffee is an old crop, if it's for whatever reason not at its prime, those issues with quality will be highlighted in cold brew. So the first thing I want to say is that the better the quality of your coffee beans, the better the final product, which is obvious. And if there are any varieties or origins that are better than others, not really. To be honest, for Timor, we use coffee from Brazil. It's a yellow bourbon from Samambaia farm with which we work directly. Classic, nutty, chocolatey, mild acidity, round, balanced, a crowd pleaser. Whereas with Ansys, their Magic Pussy RTD we produce out of Kenyan beans, which are juicy, funky, fruity, bright, acidic, completely different taste profile, but equally great in flavor. So I don't think there is any specific origin or a variety for cold brew other than the fact that it has to be of a finest quality.
I totally agree with you, but probably I would add one thing that you need to understand what kind of product it's going to be, where it's going to go. If it's specialty direction towards the, let's say, us a little bit unnormal people, on coffee consumption, we like to play with crazy things and stuff like that. It's fine to go with anything, and I agree with much on quality there. Just the question will be the quality of the coffee. And it could be very kind of anaerobic processed coffee, will still going to give you some amazing effect on a cold brew. But if you, let's say, targeting your product to enter some retail shelves and your consumers will be mostly traditionally coffee oriented, you really have to take that in consideration. And probably Brazilian choice would be, in that case, much smarter because they will understand the product much better.
I agree with the answers, and also you can take it from a geographical perspective. For example, the whole Arab world, they have been drinking Brazilian coffee for like 40 years. So that's something very, something they know, something that they would like. So I guess that's also a good perspective to look at.
All right, guys, thank you so much for a highlight for going deep into this. And yet another question flowing in. Are there any trends or biggest opportunities for specific flavors of RTDs, please? Well, that's a specific question. First of all, I can relate to what I've already said about functional drinks. That's definitely something that I would take a closer look into it. So not just launching any RTD or any cold brew RTD coffee, but providing a little bit extra value to it for a consumer. Another thing that we see is growing is a demand for products like tonic cold brew, which is sparkling, which is refreshing, which is a little bit more indulgent. And speaking about indulgent this is something that from all of the market analysis for the future comes up that the consumers, despite being health conscious, wellness, etc., because of the reality we're living in and the uncertainty of our modern world, will be facing more and more into indulgent products such as caramel latte, right? Or a sweet flavored product that they just say like, okay, it's my guilty pleasure, I don't care. So these are two contrary trends I'm speaking about. One is functional, good for your health, good for your body, and the other one is completely opposite. But they can both coexist like they do coexist at the very moment. So I guess those are two opportunities I would say are ahead of us in the RTD market when I'm looking at it from the overview.
Don't forget to look what the big guys are doing in the block.
Exactly. Yeah,
They will always
exactly.
show you what is the mass market trend. Caramel latte, vanilla latte, it's always going to be your killers. Any other flavors, nice, good. They will make some volume for sure. It's interesting, but long-time players most likely will be the same. You will see what the big guys doing.
100%.
Yeah, even for you, Timur, you have black coffee, but you also have mocha and you have hazelnut, right? So you have something for coffee connoisseurs and something for as a crowd pleaser. So that's perfectly aligned. All right, next question, please. All right, very business-oriented question. A
Straightforward.
price per unit of the pallet in one-stop shop and custom formula. Well, what can I say? I can say that depends, but just that depends on the formula, on your volumes. So we do have a price list, which I'm happy to share with any one of you after the webinar and when we have a conversation. The prices will be different depending on the formula, or if it's custom formula, it's also going to be different because you're going to provide us with your raw material, at least in a part of it. The price will be different depending on the volume, of course, and also the way you would like to brand your can, because there are more and less expensive options. But just to give you a ballpark number, at the MOQ of 3,000 pieces, black coffee from Brazil in our price list starts at 1.38 euros net per can, ex works, and it only goes lower with volume. So ballpark 1.3, 1.4 euros. This is where we start. There are more expensive options. If we talk caramel latte, it's going to be probably somewhere around 1.5 euro per piece at the MOQ. But one important thing to have in mind, though, is that this business, whether you are specialty coffee or not at all, is all about two things: distribution, which is something that Timur spoke in a great detail, and number two, it's the volume. If you're entering this business to sell a pallet or two in a year, you ain't gonna make no money on it. It's gonna be an additional product for you, maybe a little bit of margin, but that's it. But if you really want to make an entire business around it, or make it an entire business line, you need to go into volumes. Only then your price will go low enough so that you keep on making healthy margins. Yes, of course, Rod, we do have a template for designing your label. There is a template, there is a manual, there are all the do's and don'ts. We just share it with you. You provide your design over it, send it over to us for verification. If there are any amendments to be made, we give you some heads up, you redo the artwork, and then we approve it and send it over to the printing house. So the whole process of designing your labels is as much streamlined as possible. A lot of questions. I'm happy. How do you handle marketing and brand awareness strategies when first introducing the RTD cold brew product? Well, Timur, you are the specialist on entering the new brand to the new market. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually a super challenging question. It's a very nice question because we're still experimenting with a lot of strategies. Because at one hand, you have a lot of customers that you have to target in store. So, from our experience, like tastings, activations in stores, they gave a lot of good insights and positive feedbacks. And from another perspective, you have the social media, and now you have the TikTok actually. So it's like, the Dubai chocolate, of course, I think you've heard of it. So it all started with a silly TikTok video and it went viral. So actually, in the social media, you have to tackle, you have to experiment until you get this hype that you actually need. So, and to wrap it up, it's two strategies. First of all, you should have good in-store marketing, from tasting, from some POSM material, so people can notice and see your products because your people are actually there. And from the social media perspective, it's all about getting these funky, nice videos and the hype around your product.
Yeah, and then you can also do it the other way around, like Ansys did with Rocket Bean. When you first have a massively strong brand, which Rocket Bean definitely is, which is highly known in Baltics because of their coffee roasting products, because of their cafes. It's a widely recognized national brand. And then when you expand this brand into a new supply chain, such as RTD, then this brand supports the product. So you don't have to really launch it because the brand is driving the new product itself. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jancis, but this is the sense I'm getting from your experience.
I'm happy that this is what you're getting, but the reality is 50-50, I wish it would apply 100%, but in reality, obviously, we have to, in any society, and Timur, I understand what you're also saying, because I lived in Dubai for 4 years, and that market is also familiar for me. However, like even for us, we feel that we are strong in the Baltics, and you also feel that we are strong. It's just a bubble, It's just we are very strong in certain bubble, and there's like big amount of the people around us which are to whom also our product is not available. We are not on retail stores. You can't go to any city in Latvia and get our coffee there, unless you are in Riga and you are in capital, or you are now, for example, in Vilnius or in Tallinn, where we also have a coffee shops. You can visit coffee shop and experience the brand. But besides that, like your aunt in the countryside, living in small village, she doesn't know, you know. So it's like these several sizes of the bubbles, and obviously we kind of feel that in the center bubble, your ego says that everybody knows you and I'm strong. Reality is probably slightly different. And also in Dubai, probably you have, in UAE, like some kind of trendy, let's say people who follow the trends and so on. Obviously they know the product, and then there's going to be a lot of people who still don't know and never heard about it,
100%.
It's still a lot of things to do, right, regarding the branding and how to promote the product.
Well, this is why we are a private label provider, right? I'll let you guys do your stuff, which is marketing and distribution, because I know how painful it can be.
You take some pain from us, We don't need to think about the production, and then we just need to more struggle with the building the volumes and expanding the market.
Exactly. Everybody just focuses on what they know how to do best, I would say.
I have one question back to you, Timo, regarding the same thing here. Like regarding the marketing and strategies, staying on the same question here, do you outsource some services also? Like you outsource the brewing, but you also outsource some marketing services and some specialists?
Definitely. Because to be honest, if you have the right marketing agency, you're going to have the PR, you're going to have professional photographers, you're going to have these people covering monthly events, marathons, some paddle tournaments, you call it. So definitely going with an agency, with a good proper agency, and you have this good synergy with this agency, it's much better than having an in-house. But definitely if you're going through, like for example, hopefully once we'll be in, let's say, Saudi Arabia, in Europe, and you have a huge load, I guess here is the time when you have your in-house marketing. But when you're tackling one country, agency is more than enough, actually.
No, I think it's smart. Yeah, I agree with you.
Very well. So guys, as we're heading towards, we actually exceeded our initial time frame for the webinar, but I'm really happy that we have this Q&A. So how about the last two questions? And if there will be more questions which we won't be able to address right now, then I'll be happy to respond to them in the comment section in the YouTube of the webinar, because I believe majority of the questions we have comes from YouTube. So this will be recorded and we will respond in comments. That's number one. Number two, obviously, you will be able to reach out to us via an email, through our website, and the contact form. These are all the contact data. So make sure to get back to us if we didn't have a chance to answer to all of the questions. So here's to the studio. Two more questions before we wrap up, please. All right. Well, that's a simple one. The shelf life of our products, it's important that it's not cold chain. It's an ambient room storage, which is massively helpful from your operations point of view and the costs of logistics and consistency of the product. And depending on the formula, it starts at 8 all the way up to 15 months. So again, that depends whether this is a black coffee or a acidic product or maybe an oat latte. So 8 to 15 months, depending on what are we talking about, and ambient temperature, no cold chain required. Okay, and the final question for today will be differences in formulation and taste of Nitro Cold Brew Classic, Cold Brew Seasonal, Extra Kick, and Super Focus Nitro. Well, Rod, I think the best way to answer this question is that you share your delivery address with us, and we're going to supply you with a sample set so you can taste them, and you can tell the differences by yourself. But in a nutshell, our classic cold brew Nitro from our one-stop shop portfolio is based on the yellow bourbon natural from Fazenda Samambaia in Brazil. It's a Minas Gerais region. It's a great farm with which we work since 2018. We buy this coffee directly. It's processed specifically for the purpose of our RTD products. It's chocolatey, nutty, brown sugar, dried fruit acidity, round and balanced. Whereas seasonal cold brew that we change every now and then is more fruity, acidic, juicy. We used to have Panama Geisha in the beginning. Now we're changing the coffee into Colombian, funky processed one. Still waiting for the delivery straight from the origin. So this is going to be shifting. Extra Kick is the same coffee from Brazil, but with a tad of sugar for those who have a sweet tooth. And Super Focus Nitro is similar in taste, but it contains functional ingredients so that you can benefit not only from your taste buds, but also the functional performance of that product. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being with us today, Timur, Ansis. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you've shared your time and expertise with us today. Thank you to all of our viewers. And if there will be any more questions, anything will be unclear, you would like to talk more in detail, here is the contact data. Make sure to save it and make sure to give us a shout.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. Keep doing great job.
Likewise, my friend. And Timur, I see you soon in Dubai.
See you
2 weeks
soon.
from now.
And see, also, you're more than welcome here in Dubai. We're waiting for you.
Inshallah, one day.
Inshallah. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.